The world. This is Bishop Max of the Genesis 2 Church of Health and Healing, number 268. Hey, this is my church, and I'm under nobody's authority but my own and God, okay? So anyway, today is July the 25th of the year 2020, and what we're going to be doing here today is we're going to be making what are we making there, Wolf?
We are making CDS the easy way.
All right, well that really sounds good. CDS, that's right. We're going to end up with 1,000, what is it? 1 mil, not one 1 liter of CDS. And we do have somebody coming in the room, so we're going to be. This is by on X, so we're going to let him in, Enrique. Now, I invited this guy. He's he's a Spanish guy, I believe. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead. Did someone let him in? Or just come in?
I'll let him in.
Okay.
I remember you mentioned this guy.
Yeah. We're just now starting our recording. We are recording this for all the world to see there. So welcome to. So basically, making a 1 liter of CDS. We're going to demonstrate it, and This is our first time that we've done it here on camera, so we may make a mistake or two. So don't worry. Reverend Wolf is going to be leading us. So go ahead, Reverend Wolf.
Alrighty then. You'll see that I'm sharing my screen. We're going to be doing this video number 5. And this is the sacraments that you will require. Everybody can read that, I'm sure.
Yep.
I'm not sure I can't see Enrique in there. Are you able to see that video?
He may have left. I don't see him either.
Oh, okay, he's gone. And all right. Anyways, okay. Basically, the equipment needed is 1 liter of distilled water, a 2-liter capacity wide mouth glass jar with a plastic cover. Make sure it fits tight. A glass cup that fits in the jar. The bag, 100 milliliters or cc's of MMS, 100 milliliter cc's of citric acid, 50% or 5% HCl. So we're going to pass this over to Max, and he's going to start, with the starting instructions there. Put this 1 liter distilled water into the glass jar.
Okay, well, I'm showing it to you on my camera right here. And so I've already got 1 milliliter of distilled water in my 2-liter container. Okay, and so we've got that step. What's the next step?
Next step, we're going to take the 100 milliliters of HCl and also the 100 milliliters of MMS. So whatever you want to start with first, Max.
Okay, well, I'm going to start out with the hydrochloric acid. And if you'll notice, I've got this labeled B, and I've got it labeled B so that I won't mix my caps. Now, this is some leftover I had out of another jug, and so I'm going to put 100 milliliters in here, okay? And so if you want to follow me with that.
Absolutely. Now, remember the fact that 100 milliliters is also the same as 100 cc's for those of you that have containers that are listed with the cc's.
You're so smart.
Yes, that's for if you're like using a syringe, right? You can syringe up 100 cc's into a syringe and put it in that way. So whatever way you want to pour it or you want to syringe it, it's up to you.
So anyway, I'm pouring it in. I'm putting in 100 milliliters. So let me take my time and concentrate and do this carefully. We want to get it right. Okay. So I've got the 100 milliliters of hydrochloric acid ready. Hold on. I'm looking for my lid. And so I've got that capped off, and I'm going to set this to the side. And so now I've got that ready, and I'm going to wait to pour it in because the next step, right, is we want to put our MMS or our chlorine dioxide in here. This is sodium chloride. Tell them there, Wolf, what I'm doing.
That's absolutely so. He's just going to add his sodium chloride into that container.
100 milliliters.
100 milliliters.
Now I finished up another jar, and so I've already got 90 milliliters in there. So I'm going to top it off at 100. And if you'll notice, this was cloudy. I did test this to make sure it was still good, and it tested out pretty good. And so now I've got 100. I've got 100 milliliters of each. Now, what's my next step there, Wolf?
Okay, so you're going to add those together pour into your glass.
And now, what do they recommend I pour in first?
I don't think it really makes any difference.
Okay, well, I'm going to pour, and let me see. I'm going to pour the sodium chloride in first. This is the way I usually do it.
Yeah.
Now, this glass I'm using will fit in nicely into this 2-liter bottle.
Yeah, you just have to make sure there's a little bit of, it fits snug, but there's a little bit of wiggle room.
Right, I've already tested. I've done this before, okay? And so anyway, now I'm pouring in the hydrochloric acid, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully it will turn yellow.
Oh, look, that's a beautiful activation color. Look at that color.
Wow.
Look at that color. That's awesome.
That's Coca-Cola.
Right? So anyway, I'm going to give that a little while to activate really good, and I'm going to put it right down in this distilled water. This is 1 liter of distilled water. Now this jar is tight, but it works perfectly, and you don't have to do it. You can. The main goal is that it doesn't float in the water. You know, it goes all the way to the bottom. Okay, now as you see, there's space there, right?
Yeah.
What I do is just close this lid down without spilling that. I hope you can hear me good.
Yeah.
And that's how easy it is. Now, if your jar, if it happens to try to leak out, that's what the bag is for. You can open it up, you can put the bag over the lid and then reseal it. So that guarantees that you don't lose any of the gas. If you'll watch this, and we can talk and we can share our testimonies or whatever, but this water in a matter of 30 minutes or so. Now, how long does it take to complete?
Well, they recommend putting it away for 12 hours in a dark area or spot that's, no sunlight or anything.
And I would recommend that you put it in the ambient temperature and for 12 hours, and then overnight you want to keep a cover over it. But I just put it in the refrigerator. The light goes off, when we shut the door, and I'll leave mine 24 hours. Can y'all see that it's changing the colors? You see all the dark coming down?
Yeah.
And so that's it. 12 to 24 hours, you can start using this. But see, tomorrow when we get up, I will test this with our test strip, and it'll show that it has 3,000 ppm. Man, was that hard?
Yeah. It wasn't. It was really simple.
So what's the difference between this one and the when you make separate the sodium chloride and the HCl? What's the difference between them?
The taste in this is much better. You have to double the drops. Like if you're going to take 3 drops, you take 6 drops of this, but you do it the same way. There's less people don't have Herxheimer's using this as a rule.
Okay.
And the taste is much better. Babies and things like that can take this, and this is all this is doing. What is purifying this water? Okay, and this is water purification is what we're doing here. And so our goal at the Miracle of Water and with the Genesis 2 Church, all we ever do is purify the water that we drink. Okay, that's what it's for. This doesn't cure anything. It doesn't heal anybody. It just purifies your water. And anybody with common sense knows that the water on planet Earth, almost all of it, is got diseases and bacteria in it. You know, one of the reasons they used to live a long time in the Bible, just like Adam lived 930 years, it's because their water and their environment and their air was clean. Well, with all the pollution today and all the chemicals, heavy metals everywhere, that's what this does. Chlorine dioxide, the world's greatest disinfectant and killer of bacteria and viruses. And so that's why we do this. We believe in our church that we have the right to keep our body clean inside and outside. So go ahead.
I agree with you. It's awesome. It works good. Now, CDS, if you guys will notice when you're looking through your workbook and studying for the exam, you're going to notice, for instance, if I take you to the MMS patch video, you'll notice that it gives the MMS patch to use with sodium chloride and HCl, right, which is MMS1.
Right.
And then it also gives you how to use it using the CDS.
Right.
And it's slightly different. For instance, you're going to probably add so many cc's instead of milliliters or whatever the case may be. Basically, what you're using is you're not using the sodium chloride and the HCl. All you're using is the chlorine dioxide.
That's right.
So it's less invasive on areas that are like your tear ducts in your eyes and your tongue and your nose and inside your ears. And sometimes it may be better to use the CDS for that reason rather than the harsher chemicals like the sodium chloride and citric acid or HCl. So you use it for different purposes. At least that's my understanding of it.
Right, right. Hey, Jenna, did you make anything? Did you make anything on
You know
camera?
what? I can show you my.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to do half the protocol there. So basically 500 mils instead of 1 liter.
Are you ready to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead and take him through the same exact procedure there, Reverend Wolf. And again, Enrique, we're glad you came. And if you look on the bottom of the screen there on your side, there's a chat bubble. And so if you have any questions or concerns, you can just type it in the chat, and somebody will be monitoring the chat and be replying back to you. Okay? Thanks for being here. Go ahead, Wolf.
Alrighty then, you're all ready to go, Juna. So you've got the amount of water that you have for your bottle.
So I've measured here 500 mils instead of 1 liter.
Right.
Because I only want to make half of what the Bishop Max just did.
Yeah. So you're gonna have again your mixture then.
Yeah.
And this class, I've done half of that protocol. So
on the Trump campaign, at the RNCN, and the administration, I can tell you, no one is going to say or acknowledge reversing course, but they are in fact reversing course. It may not be as dramatic in the coming weeks as it was this week, but I would say, based on sourcing, to expect more action like this. Now, the official story on Jacksonville is that CDC officials have really been hoping that over the summer the virus was going to ease up, and so then CDC guidelines would be changed to reflect that. That would make sort of the convention issue and maybe even the facial mask issue obsolete by the time President Trump actually had to push pedal to the metal. The real story here is that a handful of officials inside the administration and the campaign got hold of the president and really convinced him that his moves were hurting him in the polls, and that part of the reason he's been sliding lately is because he was not that he wasn't attuned to Americans' real concerns about the virus, but that he wasn't attuned to how extreme and dramatic they were becoming with this new surge, and so that's why we're seeing this reversal.
Meanwhile, Joe Biden pulled out his biggest gun this week, putting out a video of his first face-to-face, in-person, not virtual joint appearance with President Obama, and here is some of that.
You can't separate out the public health crisis from the economy. If you want the economy growing again, people have to feel safe.
What you did, and what all great presidents do, is not only they persuade.
Juan, how effective do you think Barack Obama can be in helping Joe Biden? To what degree can he transfer his very considerable popularity among Democrats and independents to Joe Biden?
Well, I think that he can have a tremendous effect for just the reason that you articulated, Chris, which is that he remains quite popular with Democrats and independents, and people also see him as quite presidential, which is quite a contrast at times to the popular view of President Trump as provocative, entertaining, divisive. So that's quite a contrast at this moment. As you said, President Trump has made big changes within this last week. The convention on the mask, even now resuming the briefings on the coronavirus in the White House. He's even now trying to start telling the truth in some cases, saying that the virus will get worse. But in both in terms of the public health challenge and the political challenge, these things are coming late in the game. As Julian was saying, what you see is that he's down. I think it's 8 points in the Fox poll, 10 points in the Washington Post polling. So he's down in a big way and feels the need for a reset. The problem is the coronavirus is the #1 issue politically right now, and 2/3 of the American people don't trust him.
Juan, I'm going to break in because we've got about a minute and a half left, and you each got to give me about a 20-second answer. Joe Biden is reportedly scheduled to announce his vice presidential pick next Saturday, August 1st. Juan, let's start with you. Go down. Who do you think it's going to be?
Well, the dark horse that's emerged this past week, Chris, is Karen Bass, the congresswoman from California, former head of the assembly there. But don't take your eye off of Kamala Harris, Susan Rice, and of course, when you think about Elizabeth Warren, she's very popular with all Democrats, both black and white. So even black Democrats who want a black woman are saying, well, we want to win.
All right. I'm asking you to go quickly, much quicker than that. Jillian, who do you think is going to be the pick? And I have to say, Juan did not go to settle on one choice. Go ahead, Jillian. Give us one.
No, well, Kamala Harris is the front-runner pick, according to Democrats today. She doesn't have it in the bag. This could change, but she is definitely the front-runner according to sources this week. But they also say she might not be progressive enough.
Okay, and Guy, your thoughts about who do you think the vice president is going to pick?
There's a bit of a boom right now for Susan Rice. Tammy Duckworth, the senator from Illinois, she's in the conversation. My money is still probably on Kamala Harris. She feels, I think, from the Biden campaign's perspective, like the safest pick, and they're running a very safe campaign.
And I will say one other thing. Kamala Harris has really been off the screen, and I remember Joe Biden went completely dark just before he was picked, so that's an indication of something, maybe. Thank you, panel. See you next Sunday. Up next, our Power Player of the Week. He's known for merging pop with piano. Now he's getting a musical mashup of classical and pop.
And you start with the better hot dog from Oscar Mayer.
That's no way to treat a dog.
You can do no wrong.
Where did you learn that? Internet.
Yeah. With no artificial preservatives or added nitrates or nitrites, it's all for the love of hot dogs.
If stress worsens your digestive issues, try new Align Digestive De-Stress. It combines Align's probiotic with ashwagandha to help soothe occasional digestive upsets, plus stress that can make them worse. Align Digestive De-Stress from the pros in digestive health.
I'm Andrew Saul, Commissioner of Social Security. Beware of telephone scammers pretending to be government employees. Real Social Security employees will never threaten you. Callers threatening you with arrest or other legal action and demanding money are not from us. If you receive a call like this, hang up, do not provide them with any form of payment or information. Report the call at oig.ssa.gov.
For 45 years, Nutrisystem has helped millions of people lose weight and live healthy. Enjoy delicious prepared meals and snacks delivered right to your door. And right now, you can get 50% off a month of meals and 50% off a month of shakes with probiotics to help support your immunity. We're here for you. Get free home delivery and stay healthy with Nutrisystem.
Go online or call 888-504-DIET to save 50% on a month of meals and 50% on a month of shakes.
Being a patient with diabetes myself, I can say without question that the Dexcom system is the most powerful tool to help navigate diabetes better on a daily basis.
I love it. I just wear a little sensor and that's it. It's totally painless and private.
The Dexcom sends my glucose readings to my receiver every 5 minutes. I just pull it out of my pocket and look, and I don't have to prick my finger.
Dexcom puts you in control, not your diabetes.
Britain's finest detective work is on BritBox, now home to the largest collection of Poirot
At your service, madame.
and the acclaimed BritBox original, A Confession.
This is your last chance.
All new and exclusive to BritBox. Start a free trial today.
Civil unrest, protests throughout the country, calls to defund police. After the death of George Floyd, Lawrence Jones explores what needs to be done now to mend America's race relations. Don't miss One Nation with Lawrence Jones tonight on Fox News Channel.
It's a constant test for symphony orchestras how to bring in fresh ideas and fans without alienating the diehards. As we first told you in February, the guy who brought piano to the punk scene is taking on that challenge, and he's our power player of the week.
There seems to be a hierarchy which you would think exists, where the symphony is the great thing and then the rockers are the dumb ones, but it's not that simple, and each have something to offer the other.
Ten Folds is all about breaking down barriers, musical barriers between pop and classical. As artistic advisor to the National Symphony Orchestra in Washington, his late-night, sold-out, declassified concerts are the platform for his special mix.
It's about unformalizing the symphony orchestra in a way that doesn't intimidate people. People go to the symphony and they think, oh, how do I dress? That I don't even know. So, we make it informal in a way for them to feel comfortable to be there.
He's been blending genre since the 90s, when he started Ben Folds 5, which hit the charts with a ballad spring. No guitar.
No guitar. In an era that was all about the guitar. That was the grunge era.
You called it punk rock for sissies.
And maybe nerds would have been a little better word. I realized that everyone could relate to piano music, but it just wasn't cool at the moment.
Walk us through, when you're sitting at a piano, how come up with an idea?
I don't know. You know, like if I was going to say, "Hello, Christmas," then I'd find it to be "Hello, Christmas." You know, like then I would find it on the piano.
That's the Chris Wallace song?
That's the Chris Wallace
Let me hear that again.
Here's the happy version. Hello, Chris Wallace, how are you today?
I love that. Fold shares his creative process in this memoir. The title refers to a childhood dream where he finds joy by catching lightning bugs for others.
As an artist, what I do is I capture the thing that I see, the thing that interests me. My job is putting that idea in a model, which I've taken my whole life to do, and to share that with other people.
He's still sharing his lightning bugs and spreading joy. In our interview last week with President Trump, he questioned whether his Democratic opponent, Joe Biden, could handle a similar encounter. Well, this week we asked the Biden campaign for an interview, and they said the former vice president was not available. We'll keep asking every week. And that's it for today. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Fox News Sunday.
Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin. This is Life, Liberty, and Levin. This is a huge subject we're going to discuss tonight for the full hour. A huge subject. The Democrat Party is not really a national party. What the Democrat Party does is it breaks down the country by race, by religion, by sex, by what kind of sex you like, by geography. And it's the old FDR method of trying to cobble together various communities and various groups based on physical distinctions and economic distinctions, and to build a majority that way. And you can see the Democrats have never stopped, and Joe Biden is doing this in a big way. They're targeting the suburbs of America. They're targeting the suburbs of America. They talk about the white women in the suburbs with college degrees, and they feel like they're going to win that vote, and if they win that vote, they're going to win the presidency. How do I know that? Because I read it in the newspapers, and everything in the newspapers must be true. But it is true. And so they feel that this is the weak underbelly of the Trump campaign. And so I want to focus on this for a moment, and I want to start this way. The suburbs today are not the suburbs of half a century ago. The suburbs today, whether you read an analysis by CBS News in 2016 that looked at 2010 and said the suburbs are 35% minority, or whether you look at the Atlantic, which says that 52% of the black community actually lives in the suburbs and not the inner city. The suburbs are far more diverse than the cities. They're very diverse, but they're being targeted. Being targeted for what? Federalized, centralized government control by the left. And it really started under Obama. And that's why this is a very, very important topic for people who live in the suburbs, people who want to live in the suburbs, and people who don't live in the suburbs but care about the nature of their country. And so I'm bringing the best expert I know to talk about this, Stanley Kurtz, Senior Fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center, contributing editor to National Review, who's had wonderful articles there about this, author of Spreading the Wealth. Stanley, how are you, sir?
I'm great, Mark. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure. So let's start at the beginning. What is it that the federal government did to ensure that the civil rights and equality would exist in housing all across the country?
Well, Mark, the federal government during the civil rights era passed the Fair Housing Act of 1968. And rightly, the Fair Housing Act prevents discrimination in housing. So if people come to buy a home or to rent an apartment, they should be treated in the same way, regardless of race, regardless of ethnicity, if they're immigrants, regardless of national origin. That is the law, and it should be the law. And HUD, under both Democrat and Republican administrations, enforces that law.
So this seems morally correct under every circumstance. It seems like something that's been in place a very long time. Seems to be working pretty well. But then Obama becomes president of the United States. And what does Obama do with that 1968 statute?
Well, Obama represents a segment of the Democratic Party, an increasingly influential segment, that really doesn't think well of the suburbs. Of course, as you mentioned, they want suburban votes. What they're a little less eager to have understood is that they consider suburbs themselves in some ways fundamentally unjust. Why? Because when people move out to the suburbs, they take their tax money with them. And that is viewed by Obama and many other Democrats as a way of selfishly keeping your money from less well-off people in the cities. So the Obama administration, riding on some language in the original Fair Housing Act that did not have all the meanings he gave to it, created a really massive rule called affirmatively furthering fair housing. Now, there was a brief mention of affirmatively furthering fair housing in the original Fair Housing Act, but all it really meant at the time was that the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development should take positive steps to make sure that people didn't discriminate in housing between people of different races or ethnicities, etc., just as we said before. But Obama took that brief mention and created out of it a transformative rule, a little bit like Obamacare, in that it's a massive rule that does a great many things, and you have to keep delving and delving. And the bottom line is that AFFH, the acronym for Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing, would radically undercut the political and economic independence of America's suburbs. It would allow bureaucrats in Washington, in the Department of Housing and Urban Development, to control zoning laws, to control the placement of transportation and business districts, even to some degree the drawing of school districts. In other words, almost every important local governmental responsibility could, under AFFH, fall into the de facto control of the feds.
So effectively, in so many crucial respects to the people who live in these communities, or the people who want to live in these communities, the federal government would nationalize, federalize decisions respecting the economy, schooling, law enforcement, housing, zoning, commercial activity, transportation hubs. Have I missed something?
You probably have, Mark. I've probably missed something, because there are so many things in the AFFH regulation. It's hard to keep track. For example, I'll give you just one example of something we both missed, quote unquote. The AFFH will allow the feds to push local governments into regional governing consortia. Now, what does that bit of gobbledygook actually mean? It means that it will try to create a layer of government in between the federal government and local government, a layer of government that corresponds to your greater metropolitan area. So if you are in, say, Montgomery County outside of Philadelphia, it will try to remove your governing responsibilities and hand them over to the greater Philadelphia metropolitan area, which will probably end up taking a chunk of your tax money. So there's a lot in AFFH.
I suspect they're going to need to keep a lot of data on what's going on with schools, where houses are built, what kind of houses are built, who lives in these houses, what kind of density you have in a particular area, and on and on and on and on. And these federal bureaucrats are going to be doing it out of the HUD building, as opposed to people in communities going to their zoning boards, going to their commissioners, going to their city councils. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct, Mark. And here's how it really will work. The feds will provide some basic census data to the localities that apply for various grants from the federal government. But really, then they will force your locality, your county, or your municipality to fill out a very detailed demographic form. And you're going to have to list where everyone in your jurisdiction lives according to their economic status, according to race, according to ethnicity, if they're immigrants, according to national origin, according to English language proficiency, according to handicap status. And there are, I could go on, and I will go on and explain how that will then be used by the feds. But one crucial thing you need to know is when you fill out that form, if you check the wrong boxes, you could be opening yourself up to a lawsuit as a locality. And that would have tremendous negative effects. And we've already seen a kind of run through of this in Westchester County in New York State, which the Obama administration used as a kind of dry run for its AFFH rule. So if you are sued, that would give the feds an additional lever, say, to force you to go into a regional governmental consortium, to force you to remove your zoning and make it the way the feds want, to force you to spend tens and even hundreds of millions of dollars on high-density, low-income housing. There's almost nothing they can't do once they scare you into a lawsuit. And if you fill out that form the wrong way, you are really opening to a suit.
I want to talk about Westchester County, New York in the next segment, so the audience understands this is real world. This is not theoretical. This is not abstract. This is not of the possible. This is of reality. And I want to talk about what Joe Biden intends to do about it. Now, President Trump comes into office. Ben Carson becomes Secretary of HUD. And you have this Obama regulation out there. What have they done with this regulation?
Well, the good news, there's a lot of good news, actually. From the beginning, Secretary Carson and President Trump suspended the enforcement of AFFH, but they didn't actually end the rule. They didn't pull it away, and there was a lot of hemming and hawing about what should actually be done. But very recently, President Trump, with the help of Secretary Carson, have in a very powerful and effective way put an end to AFFH as it was created under the Obama-Biden administration. And this is really a tremendous accomplishment because we often have what we call in government the ratchet effect. A ratchet only goes one way. It either stops or it moves in one direction. And people say that the federal government often is under a ratchet effect, meaning it only gets bigger, or maybe if a Republican gets in, it stays about the same, but it never actually shrinks. And this is a case where President Trump, with the help of Secretary Carson, have actually countered the ratchet effect. Not only have they peeled back virtually the entirety of the Obama-Biden AFFH rule, this radical, overreaching rule, but they've even peeled back some layers that had accumulated over the original law, which weren't really about what was in the law, even before the Obama-Biden AFFH. So this is a brilliant stroke on the part of the Trump administration. It's a courageous action, and it sets up a radical dichotomy between what Biden is going to offer the suburbs, which is AFFH turbocharged, so to speak, and we can explain the turbocharging later, on the one hand, and President Trump, on the other hand, is saying to the suburbs, oh no, I'm not going to mess with your fundamental freedoms. Joe Biden is, and there's going to be a choice like night and day.
Well, when we come back, that's exactly what I want to focus in on. I think people need to understand that this election really is so crucial. It's not about theory. It's not about policy that affects somebody else. The left is very, very serious about fundamentally changing America, and that means school systems, police departments, zoning, and the only way they can do it is to nationalize these local decisions. Now, of course, when it comes to rioting the streets and the mayors supporting it or closing their eyes to it, all of a sudden they're federalists. But when it comes to everything else, let's not fool ourselves. They're iron-fisted central government promoters, and this is very important. They're targeting the suburbs for votes, and now the suburbs need to understand that they're also intending to target them for control. We'll be right back.
Experience the adventure of a bigger world in a highly capable Lexus SUV at the Golden Opportunity Sales Event. 0% financing on all 2020 Lexus models. Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer.
Cover it up. That's what I did when I started this weekend. Then I realized I could actually do something. Now I use Keeps, the easiest way to keep my hair. And it only costs $1 a day, which means no more covering up. Get started at Keeps.com.
You want results? You need a personal trainer in your home on your terms.
Hard work, that's reward.
A trainer that live controls your machine.
Everything you got right now, go!
To give you a truly interactive experience.
This is your reward.
Interactive personal training. Only at NordicTrack.com.
I have the power to lower my blood sugar and A1C.
Because I can still make my own insulin, and Trulicity activates my body to release it, like it's supposed to. Once weekly Trulicity is for type 2 diabetes. It's not insulin. It starts acting from the first dose, and it lowers risk of heart attack, stroke, or death in people with known heart disease or multiple risk factors.
Trulicity isn't for people with type 1 diabetes or diabetic ketoacidosis. Don't take Trulicity if you're allergic to it. You or your family have medullary thyroid cancer or have multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2. Stop Trulicity and call your doctor right away if you have an allergic reaction, a lump or swelling in your neck, severe stomach pain, changes in vision, or diabetic retinopathy. Serious side effects may include pancreatitis. Taking Trulicity with sulfonylurea or insulin raises low blood sugar risk. Side effects include nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, belly pain, and decreased appetite, which lead to dehydration and may worsen kidney problems. We're committed to helping ensure Trulicity is available and affordable. Learn more at Trulicity.com.
The island of St. Lucia. Only at Sandals can you stay at one resort and play around at all three. Play around wherever you want. Play around as often as you like. Dine around at 27 gourmet restaurants. And join limited rounds on us. Sandals Resorts in St. Lucia. Get free vacations for the price of one. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
Tough topics, big stories. Sean Hannity is not afraid to tackle anything. For the take you need, don't miss Hannity. Weeknights.
It's never been more important to take care of your heart from the comfort of your home. Many people have an irregular heartbeat called atrial fibrillation, which increases their risk of having a stroke by 500%. Others have a family history of atrial fibrillation, which increases their risk of having it by 30%. And those over 65 are at the highest risk. If they only knew they had the condition, they could actually do something about it. Well, now with KardioMobile, it is possible to know what's going on with your heart. KardioMobile is the FDA-cleared personal EKG device, which allows you to take a medical-grade EKG in just 30 seconds from anywhere. KardioMobile is proven to detect atrial fibrillation, one of the leading causes of stroke. KardioMobile can also tell you when your heart rhythm is normal, giving you daily peace of mind. Check your heart's health every day with KardioMobile. KardioMobile is now available for just $89. To order, visit KardioMobile.com. Also available at CVS and Amazon.
Welcome back, Staley Kurtz. The suburbs, the target of the Democrats, and by target I mean the target for destruction. And the Democrats have kind of showed some ankle that are now kind of covering it up, as Biden wants to get as many votes out of the suburbs, particularly that ring the major cities in this country as possible, because he views that as the way to victory. Now, Stanley Kurtz, give us the full foundation of what it is that Obama Biden were trying to do.
Absolutely, Mark. Well, remember before I mentioned that any locality that applies for a federal housing grant is going to have to fill out an elaborate demographic form. You've got to explore everyone's jurisdiction by income, by race, by ethnicity, etc., etc. That's just the beginning. Once you've done that, you have to compare your suburb's demography to the demography of the greater metropolitan region. So again, if you're in Montgomery County or Chester County in suburban Philadelphia, you have to then compare your demography to the demography of the greater Philadelphia region. And if there are any imbalances, if there are different races, ethnicities, or incomes in different parts of the region, you have to submit a plan to HUD to remedy that imbalance. And what that means in practice is that if you're an upper middle class suburb, you might be obligated to build tens, even hundreds of millions of dollars in what's called high density, low income housing, and change your zoning regulations if your zoning had allowed only for single family residences, a house with a nice yard where your kids can play and plenty of parking on the street. That would have to change. And even that is just the beginning, because you then have to inventory everything in your district, which is called a community asset. What is a community asset? Where are the good schools in your district? Where are the parks? Where are the transportation hubs? Where are the employment opportunities in the business district? And if all of that is not equidistant from all of the different demographic and economic groups in your jurisdiction, including the people that you would bring in from other parts of the metropolitan area, then you're also in trouble, and you have to develop a plan to fix that. So that's the gist. There's a lot more, as I said, with regard to forcing you into a regional governing consortium. Maybe you'll be sued because you filled out the form in a way that was not very smart. So those are some of the main traps that are laid for almost any jurisdiction, especially suburban jurisdiction, that applies for a HUD grant under AFFH as created by the Obama administration.
This almost reads like Thomas More's, or sounds like Thomas More's book Utopia, in which they create these communities, and at some point they tell you what uniforms you're supposed to be wearing, and who attends lunch and what hour, and dinner and what hour. I mean, this is such a massive assault on individual liberty, on mobility, on private property rights, on our local zoning system. It destroys our history in every respect when it comes to our governing system. And it all of a sudden turns everything over to bureaucrats at HUD who are, let's be honest, they are motivated by a radical left-wing agenda. So you'll basically wipe out the suburbs, you'll wipe out the ability for local governments to govern. And let's say you have somebody or some group, a town council or a mayor, who say, we're not going to go along with this. What's the punishment of this?
All right, that is, in a way, the million-dollar question. The first thing a suburb could do if it didn't want to go along with this is just not apply for the HUD grants. Many, really most local jurisdictions in the United States receive what are called community development block grants from HUD. So you could say, okay, I'm not going to apply for it. And that would be smart. Okay, you'd be giving up the money, but you also wouldn't be filling out the form, which could get you sued. But here's where Joe Biden and the turbocharging comes in. It's bad enough that Biden has promised to enforce the Obama-Biden AFFH to the hilt, but now he's come up with a new idea that he got from Senator Cory Booker. And the new idea is this: not only will your HUD grants become conditional on doing all of the things that I just explained, but now your suburb will not be able to participate in any state road repairs that use any money in what are called surface transportation grants from the federal government. Now, what suburb in the United States could afford to exempt itself from state road repairs? Its roads would deteriorate, or if they're going to build a new artery to help the commute, how could you not have an outlet from that artery into your jurisdiction? It would be impossible. So once the Obama-Biden AFFH is turbocharged with the Booker plan, I think every suburb in the country is going to have to capitulate.
It's so amazing, and I bet it would even expand beyond that. I bet they would try to go to court and cut off all or most federal grants, whether it's for education, whatever it is, try and tie it back and then get it in front of an Obama judge or even a Biden judge, should God forbid he win. And all that seems to happen is the trajectory goes one way. If Donald Trump has become president, who hits the brakes and says, this is crazy, this is not what America's about, this is a violation of our constitutional construct, individual liberty, individual choices, and I'm not going to put up with it. And then you have the other party, which is absolutely focused on the government control of the individual, federal government control of our school systems, federal government control, more than that, of healthcare, federal government control of the employment in the workplace, and on and on and on. But I want to expand with you when we come back, Stanley Kurtz, the turbocharged part of what Biden plans to do. And then I want to ask you, why are they so quiet about it? We'll be right back.
This summer, we've all got miles to make up. Miles to the job site, to the campsite, and anything else we set our sights on. Miles will take us back to the people we've missed, and to those who can make this summer more than ever before. Get the most out of those miles during the Grand Summer Plains event.
Is Aaron Judge the most exciting player in the game in your eyes? Unashamedly, he's my favorite player in the game.
On paper, man, Philly's look nasty, right?
Price up is a freshman. When he plays with his hair on fire, that's still definitely.
It's an immediate.
If someone knew all your secrets, and they could use your history, would you let them into your home? Of course not. The problem is, you already have.
Everyone loves the benefits of compression socks, but they're just so hard to get on. Until now. Introducing the all-new CopperFit Energy Socks, redesigned for the first ever easy on, easy off fit to help reduce swelling, relieve tired aching muscles, and provide energizing support. A new blend of stretch fabric, comfortable, easy on, easy off compression fit.
Being a SWAT commander who trained to win, the CopperFit Energy Socks, they didn't feel like other compression socks. They totally exceeded my expectations.
Our most powerful copper-infused fabric, woven into our easy on, easy off compression sock to help reduce swelling discomfort from prolonged sitting or standing.
I'm 38 and a half weeks pregnant. CopperFit Energy Socks works beautifully.
Extra support around the arch and ankles for increased support and relief of muscle aches and pains.
I'm so excited about these socks. I'm so much more energized to after a day of work. They just slip right on, yet they still have that same compression that you want.
A soft footbed for all-day comfort.
I'm on my feet at least 9 to 10 hours a day. These were fantastic. A lot of them, especially for what I do with CopperFit. I can wear these every day.
Feel more energized. Feel more active. Just feel better.
They just hug your life. It relieves all the pressure that you have. I have so much energy. I can go. Hey, you want to dance?
The first easy off compression sock. The most comfortable compression sock you will ever wear. Get your CopperFit Energy Socks now online at GetEnergySocks.com for only $19.99 or call 1-800-613-5609. Order right now and we'll include a second pair of compression socks free.
No more pain, no more swelling, no more aching tired feet. Never go back to regular compression socks again.
Don't settle for ordinary. Energy sock.
Love you all. Miss you all. Stay safe.
These past few months haven't been easy, but they've reminded us that no matter what, there's no place like home. Now, more than ever, with rates at historic lows, home has new meaning. Home means everything.
Live from America's News headquarters, I'm Ashley Strohmeyer. Just the third hurricane in Hawaii's modern history could soon make landfall. Hurricane Douglas is threatening the most isolated state in the country. The National Hurricane Center is tracking the Category 1 storm as it swirls uncomfortably close to the islands. Residents are still preparing for winds of up to 90 miles per hour and 15 inches of rain. Hawaii Governor David Ige is closing both state offices and federal courts on the most hazardous parts of the island. Nearly 4,000 miles away, residents of southeastern Texas are recovering from Hurricane Hannah. The storm slammed into a state already battered by the coronavirus. Texas Governor Greg Abbott issued a disaster declaration for 32 counties. Hannah has been downgraded to a tropical storm with the remnants of the system lingering over northern Mexico. I'm Ashley Strohmeyer. Now back to Life, Liberty, and Levin.
Welcome back. Stanley Kurt, you talk about how Biden really wants to intensify or expand what the Obama-Biden plan was. By borrowing from Cory Booker, he says, hey, we can cut off more funds of that. Let's cut off effectively road funds. And of course, the suburbs need road funds because they're the suburbs and a lot of people drive. There's not a lot of public transportation and so forth and so on. So this would affect the suburbs a great deal. Plus, people in the suburbs are paying an awful lot of the federal tax load, and that means that they get very little back, certainly in terms of the roads when they come. So the goal is for the federal government to compel compliance or to take money away from the suburbs that the suburbs have every right to receive because they pay into the federal till. So the question to you is, given how massively significant this is to the nature of the country, to millions of people who live in the suburbs and millions more who want to live in the suburbs, which are quite diverse, more diverse than ever before in American history. Why is it so quiet? Why doesn't the media report it? Why isn't this on the front page of the New York Times and the Washington Post?
Well, that is a great question, Mark. And at one level, the answer is blindingly simple. They don't talk about it because they understand perfectly well that all the things I've been describing would completely put off suburban voters. And suburban voters are the voters that both Democrats and Republicans are trying to appeal to. So what they've done instead, and by the way you should handle this if you really believe in the policy, is to pass a law. You remember passing a law? You remember civics?
Yeah.
You go before the American public and you say, well, here's what we want to do and here's why we want to do it. Now let's have a national debate and pass a law. But instead, it is the habit of the Democratic Party to take a law and really invent meanings in little obscure clauses that were never there and create a massive bureaucratic rule that doesn't have to be publicized in the way that a law would be debated. It's a backdoor strategy. It's very characteristic of the Democrats, and that's very much what's going on here, Mark. But there's more to it as well. There was a national debate of sorts, at least the beginnings of one, over so-called sprawl in the late 90s. And there was a Time magazine issue with a brawl over sprawl. And at that time, a lot of the community organizers that Obama worked with and a lot of left-leaning groups affiliated with the Democratic Party were attacking the suburbs with proposals very much like what we find in AFF8. And time and again, we saw the same pattern. And by the way, this is something I lay out in my book, the history of it. And the pattern is this. These left-wing groups would come in with their proposals, and they would find sympathetic state legislators who would hold hearings, and there would be protests. But as soon as people got a load of what was actually in these proposals for the suburbs, they were horrified and they backed off. Even the liberals. And they said, well, this is very radical. This is not going to win. And not only that, it's going to polarize the country, and it's just flat a terrible idea, which is based on hostility to the suburbs. And at that point, the greatest advocates of the kind of changes we see in the AFF8 rule, they went underground, so to speak. And then a bolt of lightning hit, and one of their members became president of the United States, and lo and behold, they were able to run the whole policy menu as a kind of backdoor bureaucratic game.
And I think you're right. The reason the media do not focus on this is because it's really a Praetorian Guard media for Biden and his agenda and the Democrat Party. They know what he has in mind when it comes to the suburbs. They know what Obama started in Westchester, which we'll get to a little later. And they also know that Biden needs the suburbs to win. Again, we keep talking about the women in the suburbs will make the determination of who's president of the United States. And if the women in the suburbs know what's going to happen to their homes, to their communities, to their schools, if they know what's going to happen, that they'll have absolutely no control over it, since all this power will have been devoured from the locality to the centralized federal government, the bureaucracy, where they'll have absolutely no say, the women of the suburbs may focus less on presidential tweets and more on Biden policy. Is that the real reason they're covering this subject?
Absolutely, Mark. Absolutely. If this were known, they would lose. It's pretty straightforward. So instead, they cry racism when that's really not what's going on here. And I think we'll get into that more when we talk about Westchester.
And in fact, Stanley Curtis, you and I will at some point be accused of raising this to create fear among white people, which is exactly why I explained at the opening of this program how diverse the American suburbs actually are. They're extraordinarily diverse, much more diverse than the cities, as a matter of fact, and I would argue much more diverse than the Democrat Party when you look at the United States Senate, when they get 90% of the African American vote, and they have 2 black senators in the United States Senate. We'll be right back.
Hold on 1 second.
Sure.
Okay. Safe driver save 40%. Guys, check it out. Safe driver save 40%. Safe driver save 40%. Safe driver save 40%. That's safe driver save 40%.
It is. That's safe driver save 40%.
It's right there.
It's him. He's here.
He's right here. Hi. Hey.
That's totally him. That's totally him.
Safe drivers do save 40%. Click or call for a quote today.
You look great.
You look great too.
2 days using Carousel, and I started to look better. Me too.
Now Carousel starts improving the appearance of fungus-damaged toenails in just 2 days.
That's why we look so good.
Only 2 days, Carousel.
It's never been more important to take care of your heart from the comfort of your home. Many people have an irregular heartbeat called atrial fibrillation, which increases their risk of having a stroke by 500%. Others have a family history of atrial fibrillation, which increases their risk of having it by 30%. And those over 65 are at the highest risk. If they only knew they had the condition, they could actually do something about it. Well, now with KardioMobile, it is possible to know what's going on with your heart. KardioMobile is the FDA-cleared personal EKG device, which allows you to take a medical-grade EKG in just 30 seconds from anywhere. KardioMobile is proven to detect atrial fibrillation, one of the leading causes of stroke. KardioMobile can also tell you when your heart rhythm is normal, giving you daily peace of mind. Check your heart's health every day with KardioMobile. KardioMobile is now available for just $89. To order, visit KardioMobile.com. Also available at CVS and Amazon.
Do you have any idea how your mattress affects your body and how well you sleep? Is it too hard or too soft, causing you to wake up with sore shoulders, back, or hips? Are you uncomfortable because you're too hot or too cold? Now you can get the total body support you need and the better sleep you want with the new MyPillow mattress topper.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell. When I invented my new MyPillow mattress topper, I made it to have everything you'd ever want in a topper. My mattress topper helps give you the support you need, helps relieve your pressure points, and regulates your body temperature for you as an individual. It comes with a 10-year warranty. You can wash and dry the cover. It's made in the USA, and I back it with my 60-day money-back guarantee.
MyPillow topper delivers on its promise to give you a better night's sleep.
Call now to get your very own MyPillow mattress topper. Use the promo code and Mike will give you 30% off and 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free. Order now.
I personally guarantee it's going to change your bed into the most comfortable bed you'll ever own.
Perfect for recovery after a long run.
They're the only thing that gets you through a 12-hour shift. Heaven to my feet. You've never felt. Order today at ufos.com. Feel better. Feel you.
Call 800-GO-ORCID or visit GoOrkin.com to save $50 on your first mosquito service.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. But if you do don'ts. Don'ts relieves back pain.
Welcome back, Stanley Kurtz. We've been talking about Westchester County, New York. It's time to delve in. What did the Obama-Biden administration do to that county in New York?
Well, Mark, Westchester County, you could say, was the guinea pig of sorts for the affirmatively furthering fair housing regulation. Now, keep in mind that Westchester County is the fourth most diverse county in New York State. Around 2016, Westchester County had about 40% of its population were Black or Hispanic. So this is a very diverse county, and yet a civil rights suit was filed against Westchester County claiming not that they had had any housing discrimination, which is what the Fair Housing Act forbids, but claiming instead that they had falsely promised when they received their HUD grant to affirmatively further fair housing. And the lawsuit used this expansive definition of affirmatively furthering fair housing, which had nothing to do with actually discriminating. And it was never even alleged that there was housing discrimination, but rather that the district simply hadn't done enough to create demographic diversity in every part of the district. Now, as I said, Westchester is highly diverse, but there are some somewhat less diverse enclaves. For example, Chappaqua, where Bill and Hillary Clinton lived. But that is not because of housing discrimination, but because of economics. It's very expensive to live in Chappaqua. And the way to approach that is to make all Americans more prosperous, which is something that President Trump has been doing. That's the way to handle this, not some massive social engineering effort. Well, after this lawsuit was filed, the Democrat leadership of Westchester County caved. They went to the Obama administration and they said, help us to create some kind of agreement that will get us out of this lawsuit. They should have fought it, but instead they turned to the Obama administration. And using that opportunity, the Obama administration started pushing on Westchester these draconian demands. First, they had to build upwards of $50 million worth of high-density, low-income housing. Then they started pressing them to force the municipalities within Westchester to remove their single-family zoning regulations. Then this high-density, low-income housing had to be what's called affirmatively advertised. They couldn't just advertise it generally. They had to go particularly to neighborhoods that were not only minority but were poor and advertise the housing there. So in other words, they were effectively being forced to abolish their own laws and to spend tens of millions of dollars on people who didn't even live in the county with their own tax revenue. So it really was a kind of federal takeover. And that was just the beginning, because we're talking now about 750 units of high-density, low-income housing, but HUD, using an academic study, later indicated that the ideal solution and the one that would work toward in the long term was the building of 10,000 units of high-density, low-income housing. And if you actually try to calculate out the taxing on that, it could potentially raise the taxes on people in Westchester by a factor of 1 or 2. In other words, 100 or 200% increase of taxes just to pay for all that. And that's the dry run for what every suburb in the country would be subjected to under AFFH.
And of course, this is really targeted in so many ways, but targeted on eliminating single-family homes.
Absolutely. And you know, Mark, that really is the American dream. I mean, the classic American dream is you work hard, you save up, you get that dream house with the white picket fence and a yard where the kids can play, where there's a school district small enough so that if you care about your kids' schooling, you can have some influence on the direction it goes in. That's what the American Dream is all about, and that, in a sense, is the greatest anti-poverty program that ever existed. It's the motivation that Americans have to save up themselves by moving out where there's affordable land to raise a family that drives the economy, that prevents us from having the kind of class warfare that has typified Europe. But from the perspective of the left-leaning Democratic faction that favors AFFH, what we call the American Dream is really a kind of greed and selfishness and even bigotry. So there's a radical difference here, and it's going to be on the ballot this November.
When we come back, Stanley Kurtz, I want to ask you, now that the nation will be aware of exactly what's going on as a result of you being on this program, and as a result of the audience, its members speaking one to another and spreading the word, what will the reaction of the Biden campaign, the left-wing media, and their surrogates be? I have a prediction. We'll be right back.
Who you love doesn't love you back. Stay smooth and fight heartburn fast with Tom Smoothies.
ADT Yard Sign stands watch over your home and family with tested, trusted 24/7 protection. Now get our lowest rate for fast response monitoring starting at just $28.99 a month, $1 a day. Call 1-800-ADT-ASAP.
Want results? You need a personal trainer in your home on your terms.
Hard work, that's new office.
A trainer that live controls your machine
Everything go right now, go!
to give you a truly interactive experience. Interactive personal training. Only at NordicTrack.com.
Casper's summer sale is here, so you can save up to 15% on a dreamy new mattress. With new AirScape technology, air moves through so heat stays out, and you can stay asleep. There you go. Save up to 15% on a mattress at Casper.com.
Guys, how frustrating is it to find a great fitting t-shirt? It's never the right length. Standard t-shirts are one size fits all, and tailored custom t-shirts use 8 different measurements to give you the perfect fit. Your phone can measure you right now. M-Tailor for iOS or Android.
When hot button issues have America talking, Laura has the angle you won't get anywhere else. Nothing is off the table on the Angle weeknights.
Researcher in chlorine dioxide, and he is the creator of the parasite protocol that has literally revolutionized autism biomed and has helped spark the movement that led to these 133 children losing their diagnosis of autism. I would like to present to you Dr. Andreas Kalker.
Thank you very much. Thank you. 1, 2, it's working? No, it's not working. Hello, yeah, sound okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Well, thank you, Carrie. It was unbelievable. The girl, I was sitting in the background. I usually am a tough guy, you know, but I couldn't help myself. Okay, well, we all are human. It's impressive. It's absolutely impressive what we have seen. This is not a question of science. It's not a question. It's a question of heart. And I would like to tell this little story for all these that don't know, but obviously most of you know that autism obviously is curable. I should do this speak before you, because, and that's what it is. Autism is it's all wrong statements, the misconceptions, you know. And when we started all that, it was in the beginning something we found out by chance. You know, it is. I was a family member who was affected, and So I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a simple IMSD researcher, and but I'm basing all myself and all what I'm doing on logic. You know? And when you have some things like, well, they have a deficiency of something. When you make research in IMSD, if there's a deficiency, something or someone has to eat it. That was my basic idea. Say, how is possible that we have brothers or twins in the family, and one has and the other not? They are eating the same thing and they're doing the same thing, and one has a lack of vitamin B12 and the other not. So then I went more into the medical research, and I found out that nowadays medicine is not researching at all in a scientific way. Maybe they will now call me whatever, but it's just a fact. Because we have to go to the roots. We cannot say we have this and this and just put a little substance on that is symptomatic. So this is not only for autism, this is for all illnesses we have. And there's so many illnesses, so many. And I'm going to the round because I've been one of these uncomfortable boys, you know, where all the professors said, Kalka, out. No more questions, you know. Well, fact is, autism is curable. We saw the girl. There were 133 children, or even more, because some maybe have not reported back, and only 3 with total remission. I call it a parasitosis, vaccinarial parasitosis. I'm sorry, I'm really still in motion from what I saw before. And it is located in the digestive system. So I say it's directly related to vaccines. Why? If the vaccines would be the reason for the autism, all kids would have. Well, that's maybe right. But what if is never have been tested that a kid might have parasites and the cross relationship is causing it? It has never been tested. I've been looking for all the papers ever, but I have found papers that it is related. You will see later. It's a chronic gastrointestinal intoxication is located in the digestive system. So we do that, but Carrie has said the diet is important, specific anti-helmintic protocol. And this is important to point out. The protocol I do is non-systemic. It means the drugs used are not going into the bloodstream and are not damaging the boys and girls. It's a big difference because there are other systemic drugs and later the hair falls out. So no, I don't do it. The essential thing is the enema, the water enema with chlorine dioxide. The help from the family and the social networks. I would love to hug them all in a way. Not possible, but they're here, most of them. So, girls, you're amazing. You're really amazing. I have to say thank you to you. I have to say thank you because it has never been done before in the world. Science was a restricted area for some people that are lab rats, ability to go out. And the doctor said, well, this is all not true as we have not a peer-reviewed study. My peers. I made a simple discovery. There is a mucosity resistant to water, I will say now. And the Bologna University said, they call it pseudoparasites, inflammatory mucus plugs mixed with mucosal lining and food remnants. Nice typical answer. Where's the proof? I have to prove that this is one thing, but they've proved the same. So there's no proof at all because it's just their own opinion. Because what is causing it? Well, if you go into detail, you can see these proof or this mucus with a species that seems to be a parasite inside, but it goes longer. We saw the mucosity that, let's say this fruit fiber, this stool tests are usually negative. Many moms and dads come and can we do a stool test? And don't waste the money. We did one of you did a fantastic study on that. The ELISA test is negative too. Parasitologists have no answer yet, and there's a lack of scientific evidence. And that's a fact. But there is a smoking gun. If it is just the mucus, I ask myself how mucus is able to create ova. Self-evident logic. And this is not the only case because there are tons of that. Well, so it might be a mucus line, yes, of course, but then these because you can put eggs. I'm not a specialist on that. I'm a biophysicist, but I'm just a specialist on logic. And if something is, it is or it isn't. So I made a research, and this is a photograph of my lab inside. If you see this clearly, you can see clear a chain of ova of unknown species yet. I would be very thankful if any university would like to listen to me in a way. I'm a dissident, I know. But I would like to do it together with Dr. Wakefield. Together, you know, so we have to. Now we have symptoms related to parasites. We have constipation, diarrhea, abdominal pain, cramps, cold, allergies, skitching, leaky gut, and hemorrhoids. I'm speaking about parasites and nothing else. And I was looking research, and many people ask, how did you come to this conclusion? And say, okay, parasites do affect the central nervous system. They do. They cause anger, irritability, depression, oblivion, confused thinking, anxiety, obsession, and bipolar syndrome. So next time on full moon, don't shout on somebody who's driving. He just has parasites. Sleep disorders, insomnia, bruxism. This is a very good thing. But if somebody's grinding teeth, it's a 99.9% pinworm. Bedwetting, drowning when sleeping, sleep disorders, and awakenings during the night. This is a sleep disorder caused by parasites. Growth problems. We know that too, because a lack of physical and intellectual growth adequate for the age. Obsession and compulsion for sweets. We know that too. Weight gain or loss, or inability to lose weight or gain weight. Another problem is muscle and joint problems, muscle spasms, numbness in hands and feet, pain, coronary arrhythmias, cutaneous hypersensitivity, and auditory hypersensitivity. We know that from the kids. In the beginning, on the kids, many of the kids go like that. And I think this is might be directly related to the speech issue. I'm working on that, and I hope next year to surprise you. Questions? Are symptoms in common with autism and parasites? Yes, because they have the same origin, parasites. This is how I came to the same conclusion. And this is what we can see. We can see it rarely in colonics. Why? If the doctors say, well, I'm making colonics camera and I never see them, because before you do that, usually you wash out the colon. So the colon is clean. You will not see them easily because they're already gone. I have a photograph from a mom. This was a pre-autistic baby. She shot this photograph. He developed normally, and later he went into regression. And she went with this photo to the doctor, and this is a very interesting thing. If you can see, for example, it's a diagonal line over the belly. The doctor couldn't say it. I would say it is a worm. Not autistic till they did the vaccines. Facts. The protocol has done 133 children, and we are only using medications that used to kill helminths. I'm not using antibiotics at all. So if the mucus would be a bacterial issue, it would not die. No results. So it is directly related, to which point I'm not able to say here, because I need more help from other universities or other professionals that can do that. What I can say that the symptoms match, and that there is no such thing like a mucus with ova, as I know. The toxins released by the helminths are histamine, malondihaldehyde, formaldehyde, ammonia, and morphine. These are 5 toxins that are there releasing, and they give me the background to know what's going on with kids and why. If you go to histamine, you can see histamine causes inflammation. Histaminergic reaction modulates sleep. We know that the kids cannot sleep. They are always up. This is because the inflammation do that. Out of the neuronal wakefulness state more than any other substance. It means this is why the kids want to sleep, but they can't. This is why I told to carry in the moment, if you do a little mebendazole shot when they are in the night with the syringe in the in an implant. This is really effective to get them to sleep. This next thing is malondihaldehyde. So malondihaldehyde levels clearly impacted with ascaris. So we're not speaking about one species here. We have seen in these kids come on every kind of species. Actually, we have to admit there are 300 species of parasites in the human possible. And usually if you have got one, the other came too. It's like in a bar, a very dark bar. You know? If one bad boy comes, all the rest comes too. So malondihaldehyde reacts with deoxyguanosine and deoxyguanosine in the DNA. What does it mean? It's mutagenic. Many times professionals say, well, we have the Fragile X syndrome, we have genetic disorders. Wait a moment. Genetics doesn't change in 40 years, because 40 years ago we had 1 case in 10,000 and now we have 1 case in 50. This is against logic. And the next thing is you have to understand that there are toxins that can change DNA. This is what mutagenic. And this is one of these substances, and this substance is released by parasites, ascaris. And that's not because I say it. Here's the scientific evidence. We have the papers for that. It's known, but obviously it's not read. So formaldehyde is the next very toxic thing. We have to know that 30 milligrams of formaldehyde are deadly toxic. It means it's really.
And look, more human. The government school monopoly requires standardization and a factory approach. We need a completely open local marketplace for schools. Teachers, educational entrepreneurs, and groups of parents must be permitted to set up schools free of bureaucratic restrictions and hassle. Today, it's becoming a reality. All because the teacher unions and the Democrats and the bureaucrats and the rotten educational establishment have overplayed their hand. As I put it in a tweet after last Sunday's show, the government school monopoly is dying. Suicide, thanks to teacher unions, school boards refusing to give parents what they want. Micro schools, homeschooling, it's all happening. Next step, federal school vouchers. My school money back. We've laid out the evidence. Week after week, the science says reopen schools. Children are far less likely to get the virus, spread the virus, suffer from the virus, while they are suffering massively from not being at school. But the exact same people who lecture us about following the data, who call you a science denier if you disagree with a single aspect of their ever more extreme environmental agenda, well, they are the science deniers now, keeping schools closed despite all the evidence that is not just unnecessary for controlling the virus, but actively harmful to our children. Now, I tried to be open-minded. The bureaucratic school closure brigade, they're just covering their you-know-what, right? Government officials, they're always overcautious, prattling on about safety being their top priority, even though keeping kids away from school is not safe, it's dangerous. But when you see things like United Teachers of Los Angeles in their school closure demand, adding Medicare for all, defunding the police, and a moratorium on charter schools, the Oregon Education Association demanding that charter schools even be stopped from offering distance learning. In North Carolina, a local affiliate of the NCAE demanding universal health care and income support for illegal immigrants. What has any of this got to do with slowing the spread of coronavirus? Nothing. The school closures are not about health. They're about power. A cynical trick to boost the power of probably the most destructive single institution in America, the teacher unions. And it's not just cynical, it's corrupt. The politicians caving to the teacher unions on school closures are just doing the bidding of their donors. More than $200 million over the last 3 decades. And with the Democrats, the institutional corruption goes all the way to the top. Joe Biden, throughout his corrupt career, bought and paid for by the teacher unions, including nearly $2 million since 2018 from just one of them. Here's what the unions got in return.
You don't just have a partner in the White House, you'll have an 88th member in the White House. And if I'm not listening, I'm going to be sleeping alone in Lincoln Center. No privately funded charter school will receive, a private charter school will receive a penny of federal money. None.
In his platform, Biden pledging to kill a Washington, D.C. school choice program that helped poor kids go to college, over 90% of them black and Hispanic. Biden's corrupt scheme to attack the very schools that help poor kids and black kids the most is racist and evil. It alone makes him unfit to be president. Well, parents, they can see through all the BS. They've had enough and they're not taking it anymore. 2 weeks ago, we launched our campaign. If your child's school won't open this fall, demand your money back so you can find an alternative. It's your child, it's your tax dollars. Why should you pay for a service you're not getting? That's our new campaign. Reopen schools or give me my school money back. Now, parents all across America are rising up in this revolution to smash the government school monopoly. Last week, Jordan Seculo told us that hundreds of families have contacted the ACLJ about suing school closure districts. Here's that map as of Friday. Over 1,000 people from 46 states and DC. If you want to join in, go to aclj.org/help. The scale and pace of this is shocking to the complacent education establishment. In this account, shared by Bethany Mandel, within a 48-hour period, thousands of parents scrambled to online communities to put together homeschooling groups. There are reports of families teaming up to recruit teachers and form pandemic pods so their children won't go more months without a real education. Of course, the snooty elitists try to pretend this is all about rich white parents. It's racist to want to educate your kids now, apparently. How disgusting. For years, black parents have been in the vanguard of the school choice movement, as Thomas Sowell documents in his brilliant new book, Charter Schools and Their Enemies. As he put it himself, schools exist for the education of children, not to provide ironclad jobs for teachers, billions of dollars in union dues for teacher unions, monopolies for educational bureaucracies, a guaranteed market for teachers' college degrees, or a captive audience for indoctrinators. The left says poor parents can't handle school choice. How patronizing. One of the most inspiring sights of my life was seeing parents in one of the world's worst slums in Lagos, Nigeria, get together to fund a low-cost private school, paying just cents to send their kids there because the local government school was failing their kids. Private schools for the poor is a phenomenon sweeping the developing world. And now, here in America, the alternatives to government schools are becoming more and more affordable. There are many organizations ready to help. We'll put them out on social media over the next few days. Because the cost of these innovative alternatives is falling all the time, a federal school voucher in the low thousands of dollars would enable millions of parents to escape the clutches of the government schools. And that's exactly what President Trump announced this week he wanted in the relief bill. Guess who's standing in the way of that? Unbelievably, it's Mitch McConnell and Steve Mnuchin. Right now, planning to give $70 billion to school bureaucrats, including those who won't even open schools. They think this is smart politics before an election. No! School boards don't vote. Parents do. Give the money directly to them. just like the president wants. Make it a red line for the next relief bill. Let's get it done. Let's put power in parents' hands. Let's put our children first. Let's kill off for good the power of the educational establishment, schools, bureaucracy, the teacher unions have all done so much damage for so long, and back the parent power revolution. Let us know what you think at Steve Hilton X and at NextRevFNC, and share this message when we post it. And remember, we'll be putting up all the resources for you or anyone you know who's interested in these low-cost alternatives to the government school monopoly. We'll be putting that all through next week. All right, joining me now, Fox News contributor and president of Independent Women's Voice, Tammy Bruce, and the author of Always a Soldier, Rob Smith. Tammy, we've talked so many times over the years about this notion of populism, and to me it's always been putting power in people's hands. What's so thrilling to me about what's happening in response to these bureaucratic school closures that are just not justified is parents are just taking the power. They're just seizing. They've had enough. They want to be in control, and I think we should, and President Trump understands, we've got to back it. He's backing it. We need all of the Republican Party to back it in Congress right now.
Yeah, that's clear. Now, one of the reasons why individual parents feel empowered to do this, I think, is in part to the political revolution of the last 3 years, because there's a president who's encouraging them. Right now, as you've noted, the Republican establishment is not, the establishment itself. They figure, look, and this is where those of us who are minorities, those who are on the fringes, if you will, we traditionally don't have as much money or as much influence, and so we're the ones that can be pushed around, and the unions come in, and that's where the power base is. But the parents and the students lose out. So in this case, I think this is, the timing is very important. That the reason Americans feel we still have some individual validity, we still have some individual agency that we can do this, is because we still see this reformation happening at the political level, and it is something that, of course, is going to change the course of the lives of those women and men. But really, in the inner city, and for women of color, you're looking at single parents, at women who want to go back to work, who have children they're worried about, and who would love to have control over what those children are learning. Because right now, what we're finding out, look at what's going on in the streets right now. It's not good for anyone's child when it comes to what the future looks like at this point if the left remains in charge.
Yeah, that's right, Tony. That's such a deep point. You're right, because we sometimes take it for granted. We've got a president who just instinctively backs the American people when they want to have power, when they want to take control. Regardless, because he's not steeped in the establishment. He doesn't come from that background. He's not a politician that's dependent on donations from the teachers' unions, or have to curry favor and whatever to get elected locally or any of that stuff. He just sees that people want power and wants to give it to them. It's a really profound point. It's one of the things we really must remember in terms of the choice in November about what's really at stake, whether this revolution keeps going, not just in relation to schools, but right across the board. All right, thank you, Tim. Great point. Rob, you've talked in the past about this from the perspective of someone who thinks this is the school choice argument has been a missed opportunity for Republicans. They haven't emphasized it enough. Looks like the president totally gets it, sees this as a real winner.
It looks like the president does get it, and I have said in the past, I did a op-ed for Fox News Opinion called "The 5 Words That Will Help President Trump with Black Voters in November Are School Choice for Black Kids." And he seems to have gotten the memo, and I think that this is something that they've been working towards for a really long time. But I think it's an empathetic message. I think it's a message that is really good with pushing back against the left. The left likes to pretend that they are always the champions of African Americans and Latino Americans, but the fact is that the kids that are being hurt the most in underperforming public schools are African American and Latino. The kids that are being helped the most in these charter schools that are working are African American and Latino. So it feels as if there's a really big opportunity here. And I'm coming from you from Tampa, from Florida. And I say this all the time. In this Florida governor election, Ron DeSantis won 18% of Black female voters because these were the school choice moms. And that is not only an empathetic message of school choice, but it is also a message that can win this presidential election. And I think that we have been missing an opportunity in the past to have this conversation, but the president is taking it right now. And that is a very exciting thing, and it's exciting to watch. And people like us just need to start pushing those messages more and more. And as somebody who is the product of some very poorly performing middle and high schools, that I went to in Akron, Ohio, and I've spoken about this before. I know what it is like to be a black kid in a poorly performing school, and I wish that I would have had that option, because I did have involved parents, but I did not have that option. That option could have changed a lot of things for me at that point.
That's great. You see, Rob, the reason this school choice issue is such a winner politically is because it's so clear and simple and practical. That's why I keep saying, as I said earlier, they've got to do this in the relief bill, because that's money directly to parents. It's so simple and practical. They'll be very clear who got them that money, President Trump, and who would take it away, Joe Biden. All right, lots more coming up next on this exact topic, because we see all the time, the left, they love to call President Trump divisive, while they are the ones who spew hateful nonsense on a regular basis. We'll show you the proof next.
If your dry eye symptoms keep coming back, inflammation in your eye might be to blame.
Looks like a great day for achy, burning eyes.
Over-the-counter eye drops typically work by lubricating your eyes and may provide temporary relief.
These drops probably won't touch me.
Xiidra works differently, targeting inflammation that can cause dry eye disease.
What is that? Xiidra.
Can provide lasting relief.
Oh.
Xiidra is the only FDA-approved treatment specifically for the signs and symptoms of dry eye disease. 1 drop in each eye, twice a day. Don't use if you're allergic to Xiidra. Common side effects include eye irritation, discomfort, or blurred vision when applied to the eye, and unusual taste sensation. Don't touch container tip to your eye or any surface. After using Xiidra, wait 15 minutes before reinserting contacts.
Got any room in your eye?
Talk to an eye doctor about twice daily Xiidra.
I prefer you did it.
Xiidra, not today, dry eye.
You turn 40 and everything goes.
Tell me about it.
You know, it's made me think. I'm closer to my retirement days than I am my college days. I'm thinking, will I have enough? Should I change something?
Well, you're asking the right questions.
I just want to know, am I going to be okay?
I know people who specialize in am I going to be okay.
I like that.
You need classes, though.
Yeah. Guidance to help you stay on track, no matter what comes next.
It's time to forget your worries and escape to a place where the water is warm, the people are even warmer, and there are 1,000 worry-free moments waiting to unfold. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
You wouldn't go a day without washing your hands or brushing your teeth, but what about your nose, the body's air filter? With all the dangerous stuff in the air, it's time to make good nasal hygiene your new normal with Navage. Navage uses powered suction to flush out allergens, mucus, and germs, and it relieves congestion naturally without drugs.
I used to get so congested, but Navage cleans out all the stuff that makes me miserable so I can breathe again.
Online and at these fine stores. Over 1 million sold. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
Tough topics, big stories. Sean Hannity is not afraid to tackle anything. For the take you need, miss Hannity. Weeknights.
I got this mountain bike for only $11.
DealDash.com, the fair and honest fitting site. An iPad worth $505 was sold for less than $24, a PlayStation 4 for less than $16, and a Schultz 4K television for less than $2.
I want these Bluetooth headphones for $20.
I got these 3 suitcases for less than $40.
And shipping is always free.
Go to DealDash.com right now and see how much you can save.
Mesothelioma, it's all we do. With 9 offices across the country, we are large enough to take on big corporations. There is no risk. Let us come meet with you.
We only take mesothelioma claims. Call us at 1-800-400-5921 or go to mesobook.com.
Our experience and the size of our law firm makes a difference. Call us at 1-800-400-5921 or visit mesobook.com.
Like Joe Biden says he wants to heal the country. What? With rhetoric like this the other day.
We have racists, and they've tried to get elected president. He's the first one that has.
The best response to that was from radio host Charlamagne the God.
I really wish Joe Biden would shut the F up forever and continue to act like he's starring in the movie A Quiet Place, because as soon as he opens his mouth and makes noise, he gets us all killed. Okay?
A lot of people feel like that. But it's not just Biden, it's his media mouthpieces too. When our own Janice Dean took to Twitter to reject the revisionist history of New York, did a good job. Andrew Cuomo did a good job managing this virus. Former CNN host Soledad O'Brien condescendingly wrote, "Meteorologist weighs in." If there's one person qualified to speak on Cuomo's disastrous handling of the pandemic, it's Janice. She lost both her mother-in-law and father-in-law to the governor's demented nursing home policies that sent sick elderly residents back to infect everyone else. So, this intolerant, spiteful lefty launches a sexist attack on her. As always, the left are guilty of the exact thing they accuse everyone else of, in this case, fueling hate and division. I particularly wanted to talk about this, Tammy and Rob, with you two tonight, because, of course, your background, you know the left very well. Both of you have made that journey. So, Tammy, what is it about the left, do you think, that sort of makes them so hateful?
Well, my first book, interestingly enough, it's on 19 years ago now, in 2001, was called The New Thought Police. And it laid out the dynamic of what really feeds the left, which is this self-loathing, which when you talk about projection, it includes that. So it's their own self-loathing, this idea that they, or humanity, that it gets projected that as a larger framework, that they're the problem, that we're the problem, that their parents are the problem, and it becomes part of this infused political philosophy that humanity is the issue. And when you start out looking to change a country or get involved in politics, and your foundational belief is that human beings are worthless, or that humanity is just not good, but that you, as a result, because you know more, you are, you're doing what you can to try to change things for the better, then it becomes this attitude that you are superior, and that inevitably this is what happens. You begin to look down, and it's the dehumanizing that we've seen historically that leads to genocide. And then it also comes into something simple, like on a person-to-person dynamic, like with O'Brien, not looking at someone like Janice Dean as a human being, but trying to really denigrate her based on a job or something else that she's meant to be looked at as less than everyone else. Yeah. This is what has transformed everything in our society, and Americans, I think, are going to vote against that in November.
I was really, really shocked by that. So I know it was about a week ago, and we've had a million mini scandals since then. To me, it was so shocking to see a public figure just be so cruel and rude and condescending. I thought it was truly disgusting. Rob, what's your thought on all of this?
Well, my take on this is that for some reason I've never met Soledad O'Brien in my life. She's not super relevant to my generation, but I'm blocked by her on Twitter. And apparently her this is a part of I am, it's true.
So am I.
And apparently this is her reputation on Twitter. Yeah, I guess I'm in great company. But what struck me is the elitism that was inherent in the way that she went after Janice Dean in this way. So you're not meant to say something because this is your job, and I am more than. And so there's an elitism to it. And it's this elitist strain that is running through the left right now, which is very interesting, because I remember back when I was on the left, we always thought that the conservatives were the elites. We thought that they were the fat cats. And it turns out the complete opposite. And I wrote about this in my book, Always a Soldier. I talk about coming out as conservative. So I came out as conservative Republican about 2.5 years ago at this point. And the vitriol with which I was treated by the left when I decided to come out as conservative, because in their eyes, they owned me because I'm black and gay and there was nowhere else for me to go. And that was a lot of that. I got a lot of the elitism. I got a lot of the nastiness and negativity. And what it fundamentally comes down to,